Good morning, everyone. So, what happened to the Christmas rally? Certainly appears to be over, but maybe not. Thanksgiving is coming, a couple of weeks, and historically, it's always a good time for the markets to lift up, and good for it to lift up from a lower level. So, where will it go? Well, I suspect. Let's see where it is right now. And yesterday, theme was that IWM, the Russell didn't catch up. Rather, there was a rejection. And that I thought was a warning sign. And it turned out to be true. Right? So we always have analysis that creates beliefs about what's going to happen. And that rejection wasn't a good sign. And then once it broke, there wasn't really much of anything to stop it from going down. And it was pretty much a waterfall. And it's continuing to fall here because there's nothing to the left, until it gets down here. And that's where you want to focus on. And it's like whatever. Hold on. Put it on all the charts. And well, I have to load more data there, but you know what we're after. We're looking for down here for that pivot. So you've got a swing high, a pivot high, and a pivot low aligned over here. And just falling that far from there, if it should get down there, would be where I would be looking for stabilization. And then we go to the 5-minute chart and see if we actually get it. So it's down a whole lot. It's one day. Certainly could be a second day. No, we've certainly seen that happen. We've in the past, and we haven't seen it for a long time. We've seen 3 days. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does, but all we do is factory work. And we'll look over here. If it gets there, then we'll see what kind of volume there is, what kind of extreme tick readings, just the usual things. And until it gets there, I suspect it'll keep going down unless something else reaches there. Now, one of the things that we look for would be the other market indices to see if they reach a reference point of support and begin to stabilize, and they may drag the weaker up with it. And if we're going to trade something intraday, we're going to want to trade the one that's at support, not the one that's not at support. That's what we'll be looking for today. For the diamonds, they led the way up, and they didn't initially lead the way down, but they certainly hung in there for a while, and then they got rejected. You can see the 5-minute chart. We can go over here with this 5-minute chart. It just jiggled around and jiggled around there until it finally broke, and then gave it up and continued to waterfall to the downside throughout the day. And so we can't, these don't trade much, but there's a swing low, and the white area means that was during the day, right? The blue areas are overnight where it's a lower volume. So to have a pivot there, which is created with overnight data, but we look at the data from the day chart, and there's a swing there, even though it's not marked as a pivot. That's a swing in a lower time frame. This is what we call the transition from red to green, where you go to a lower time frame and look for, after a strong move up. You don't always look for that transition, but common sense is if something has fallen this far and it spikes up like that into a gap fill, it would make sense that there'd be buyers in the gap fill. So that's at 469-ish. 469-ish. So it's right there. There's that turn right there. Now, the major support is way down there. It's a long way to travel. But again, we'll see how it shapes up during the trading day. All right. There's the Qs that waterfall down, and they're down to what should be their initial destination, and they're beginning to stabilize. And this is an example of what we call the power of the void. And many people, when Dan and I do these MT lives and we say void, even those that have been there multiple times are like, I still don't get it. And, I always find that interesting because I think everything's basic and confusing when it's something new to you. And, once you get it, it's like, oh, that's so simple. How you didn't get it? But the essence of it is a momentum move. And when there's a momentum move, well, it begins to create a void because there's no support below. There's such strength. And then by going sideways, through time, you get that head and shoulders top, upside shakeout, whatever. And then you're so far away from anything to the left that no one has anything to trade off of except for their subjective things like moving averages and fib lines and trend lines and VWAPs and so on and so forth, which may stall things for the moment, but it's when it gets down here is where you have a higher probability of stabilization and potentially a counter trend move. So now that that's down there, it's the same thing. What happens when it gets down there? What kind of stabilization? Does it form a pivot? And all of those things, those basic fundamental things about technical analysis without anything fancy behind it. Common sense stuff. There were buyers there before. We assume there's going to be buyers there again. It's an assumption. It's not a fact. And this bar down here could be where it's headed today. I don't know. This could be a stall point, and then it heads lower. That's the unknown, right? They call it the hard right edge, but that's a whole number. And whether it's down there or not, time will tell, and we'll see in the next whatever half hour or so what's going to unfold. And spiders, they're not down there yet. So this leads me to believe that, well, leads me to believe based on the analysis that we look at, meaning, what am I thinking? Well, I'm thinking it's got to go down there. So what I'd like to see is maybe the cues rattle around, excuse me, at that 600 level. Maybe they spike down and come back up again. I'm looking for evidence of my assumptions as to what's going to happen. So if the cues were showing some relative strength by not going lower, and the S&P does, that would reinforce my idea about that area holding. If it travels down to the other level, well, then we'll see what happens when it gets there. So, and what we're doing here and what we do every morning is formulate a plan for the morning as to where support, resistance, and trend and what might happen in the next half hour or so. Check out the deals for the end of the year. If you've been waiting to join the green room, it's a no-brainer. You won't find anything more appealing than the pricing of that for annuals, and to be there every day with the education and the trade. It's a no-brainer, as well as if you're interested in courses and the swing letter, right? All right, let's continue. Let's look at SPX. So by a hair, it missed the extreme number yesterday. Again, these extreme numbers are used for what we believe to be an extreme on the day. Then from there, you go with what's actually happening and picking your points. Sometimes they get hit, but it's rare. And it missed yesterday's extreme by about, oh, you can look at the numbers here. You can see yesterday's low. I think it missed it here by about 4 or 5 handles. So, I mean, it was right there. All right. So we saw where they're at. Of course, it got nowhere near the upside, but I thought yesterday that based on that gap down and the proximity to that was possible because of the strength of that move up. But things fell apart. The Fed is not going to cut, I guess whatever the AI supposed bubble and all of that stuff. But things got ugly. All right. let's see where we're at here today, this morning. And it's ridiculous, right? It's always ridiculous after a move like that. This is so to hit this number today after yesterday's move would be historically amazing. And that's why I'm saying it's ridiculous. Look where the line, the green line moved to. I'm going to move the words down there for a second, but it, it's down. I gotta finish this. It's down below 6,500. I mean, somebody truly believes the market's going to crash today. And maybe it will, but I don't think it's going down there. That's all credit spread is I don't think that'll happen versus something else. So I said yesterday in the room, I said credit spreads are the most simplest concept or trading vehicle to understand what they are. But the management of them, that's a whole nother story. And that's what Dan excels at. I can, I could probably learn to do it. I just don't want to learn to do it. So call me stubborn, but you know, not my cup of tea to manage like that. All right. So they're down here. I got to go back and look at, I can see where they're at, where spiders are, where they're at. They came, they came down to 664 area. They're down near the bottom of that bottoming tail bar. So to think they're going through 6,600 down to here, that's not going to happen. You know, they're already down through 6,700, but 6,700 would now become an area of resistance if that was in the cards to get there. And to get back up there today from here, that's not going to happen either. But maybe it's 6,600. See this little poke bar, if you will, that little under those bars? That's a support area, 6590-ish. Anywhere down here, 6550. If that's it, like, I don't know, it's got to get through that pivot low down there. But anyway, somewhere 6,600, you know, maybe a little bit below that bottoming tail bars low would be where I think buyers would come in. And that's just kind of common sense when we think about, you know, average true range. And yesterday's range was 103 points. So, you know, coming down here another day would be short-term extended to the downside. All right, we'll take a peek at the futures, and they're going to be in the same areas that what I said. Right? So this is broken down. Odds are it's going to continue to go down. So there's that low right there. It doesn't look like, I don't know. It's just not such a strong area for that. And you want to keep an eye on what KRE is doing. Um, you know, so that's gapping down into some support. SMHs, we'll see what they're going to do. You know, they're already down through that low, and they're on that area down there to see if they begin to take hold. Gold is getting shellacked. You know, I mean, look, when we look at patterns, all we have is what's in the moment, and that looked like it was going to continue to go higher, but here it is. You know, I guess just money coming out of anything to raise cash. My assumption, based on I don't know whatever fundamentals, which you know, interest rates and so on, right? They're exiting out of gold. Silver also getting whacked. Is it time for buyers? I believe it will be time for buyers, Jose. Just picking that area is the key point. It's easy to give generalizations, but the moment of, and we don't need to be the moment. You know, as a day trader, you want the moment. As a swing trader, we want more evidence that it's actually happening. But just based on historical seasonality, um, you know, the holidays and so on, there'll be a rally. Right? From what point, we shall see. So Bitcoin is breaking down. You can see the weekly chart there and violating support, and that's ugly. So money's coming out of Bitcoin. Interest rates, they're not doing much of anything. And yeah, so look, oil's going up. We're just gonna see where this shakes out today. Um, this is coming back up. Energy has been being bought, but I'll be just looking down below for something to set up as a buy. And until it gets there, it may be difficult to get on board, even though some of those look like they're going to go lower to find a setup because it just may waterfall lower. You, Dan?
Good morning. Yeah, just taking the stuff on Sam's amazing Charlie Bravo relative strength. Gapping up and relative strength, anything gapping up with a big market gap down is relative strength. Doesn't mean it, you buy it, it's just a fact. It's stronger than the market. 95, what do you think?
Problem, Dan?
Yeah, I said I was updating Charlie Bravo. Yeah. Well, look, this thing's gapping up. Alarm at 298 just went off. This was an amazing 1, 2, 3 gap reversal. That's the day we entered it on Monday. Gap down and then took out the high. And again, Greg mentioned voids and this and that. There's always resistance. But this pattern said it was going to go through that pivot. And it sliced through it like margarine. We're still in this Regan, another little ascending triangle, rectangle, whatever. Now we're in trail mode on that. It's gapping up. Relative strength looks fantastic. I had an early alarm here on Apple. We had to put on a put spread on that yesterday. It's still holding up okay. NG gapping down. We bought that on Wednesday. Continuation breakout, but it's an early alarm. Stop hasn't hit. But yeah, I mentioned the VIX yesterday into the close. All right. So this is today. Okay. Yeah, I said this is an igniting bar. And look over here. Rarely do you see igniting bars being a turn in the broader market. So that's when I said, no, I think we're heading lower. And we're getting our wish. So I have a full bias today of 0 DTE put spreads. It's just a matter of waiting for our setup. And we closed out of a lot of stuff yesterday. I think we closed out of like 8 directionals yesterday, and we only had 1 loss of those 8s. So management has been good. Let's go to earnings. I deleted a bunch, and there's so many ugly stocks going into earnings. I said that yesterday when I was scanning them in the green room. RCAT. Did I lose my pre-market? Yes, I did. Oh, no. This does this. All right, there I got my pre-market. Yeah, Q's right at 600. Ideally, it just makes it easier if we sell off for another 30 minutes, because then we can get farther away. Then I'd be looking to do like 590s. Back to earnings here though. RCAT, say gapping down 652. I don't know. I don't know. Could this be short-term exhaustion? I don't know. But it's down a lot and gapping down a lot. Hey man, I favored a call spread yesterday on this big topping pattern. 207 though, it's in the middle of no man's land. I don't like those at all. It's a buy setup at the 50. Come back to a potential bottoming pattern. I have an alarm up here somewhere. But if they can take out yesterday's high, then it's a bottoming pattern. This opening flat, no interest, has to take out yesterday's high. Wifey, this one I like better as a possible gap and snap because it's gapping down a lot. But the 15 is still in a power downtrend. So we just gotta wait. Glob. This is one I tried selling the $50 put spread, but did not get filled. 61 now, there's no pattern now. That was the only earnings trade I tried. This thing is just getting killed. Sessi, wow, this thing's gapping down 35%. 927. So it's a nasty gap. But I'll just watch it to see. You see, you just watch it and see where buyers want to step up. We don't jump out. We're not being the heroes. Let other market participants give us a chart. And Max, Greg, I am so mad that we did not focus on this more. You know, this thing came IPO and friggin' ran up to $260, a stupid newspaper, online newspaper. Are you effing kidding me? We should have been stocking that as the core short of the year. You know, look at that. 260 down to $8. Look at that. These are Bullard. That's a pro gap. That's a pro gap right there. That's a pro gap. Look at that. It's in a nasty downtrend with all these moving averages. It's gapping over this pivot. Okay, well, why didn't you watch it? I can't do everything. I'm gonna put this in BZH. It'll be interesting to, you know, this is the kind of a smaller one. But XHB. Yeah, that's this sector's still thin. These are morning 30. That's a bullish gap, but excessive. They had a gap to 3250-ish. Then it has all this void up here to the gap fill, but now I kept running in the last hour and messed it up for me. That's looks like a buyout. We're going SBC 390 bullish gap, but too big. This light volume under 100,000. Look how spotty the 15 is. But this is a beautiful pattern if we get a 1, 2, 3. Give me an inside bar, and despite the small volume, I will put this in the weekend letter. Look at the moving averages, kissing and converging, igniting breakout. I love that pattern. CMDB. Cosmere bulkers. Is that a shipper? Is that what a bulker means? Coco on our, it was on our list from yesterday, but I held off with the market, but look, that just hit my 43.50 alarm. Oh, it says bunkers. Did I read that wrong? So Coco still, no, it says bulker, Bulker. A bulker is a shipper, or at least other companies use that word, bulker. They're cargo shippers. Wow. Wow. This is a Climo that's gapping down 50%. Sam, you don't need a calculator on this. It's gapping from 4 to 2. Wow, that is some pain, 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 pain. So that, but that is a pattern for a gap and snap. So I'm going to put that in a little window. And those are all their earnings. This is all just miscellaneous stuff. This was on Sam's list, a bare rectangle. I was at this Sam, this is your list also. I was hoping for 1, 2, 3, but it's gapping down. Oh, good. Thanks, Don. Yeah, try bulk vessels. Yeah, see, Alex, when that bulk is yeah, the bulkers refers to dry bulk. Yeah. Do y'all know what that the dry Baltic index is? It's actually very useful as a market internal, but it's measuring shipment of these bulking companies of commodities. Yeah, it's called the dry Baltic something or other index. All right, Paul, I'm watching. Hopefully it goes sideways for a moment. Alex, I'm gonna watch this platinum also. They trade pretty similar. Baltic Dry Index, yep, that's it. All right, so Verizon's laying off 15%, no patterns. Starbucks, I think their union had a fight, and Boeing, their union just settled something. That looks horrible. I just saw this buzz going by, a social ETF, whatever the heck that means, but I'm going to start watching it because it is optionable. Sam, Charlie Bravo, please take another bow. This is yours. Look at those power controlled bars and the fact that it's doing it with the broader market selling off is just even more remarkable. Well, let's just move stop days low, protect our money. 296.80. Why this insurance company is moving, I have no idea. So that's Charlie Bravo, new alarm, new stop. ALGT alarm. Yes, we have a half flood on this. Let's see what our stop is. 64.98. All right, so that stopped